Andrew, I think you're muted.
Yeah, I'm trying.
I hope you can hear me okay, can you? Good. Okay. I think I think what Andrew was trying to say just then was to to introduce me. So thank you all for joining this afternoon for this short afternoon seminar. So I'm Jonathan Field, and I'm the managing director and one of the founders of PTFS Europe. It was almost like being back at the cinema, wasn't it? Listening to that music and there's a little preview there for this. But happy days. So just a very short introduction before we kick off. Appreciate some of you know us already. So some of you are here sort of to see some other bits of Koha, and others of you may be new. So hopefully this afternoon we'll be able to sort of put together something of interest to you all. So just logistics for this afternoon. So everything that you see is going to be recorded and published onto our YouTube channel. So if you do want to drop out at any point and come back, that's fine. You'll be able to catch up at a later date. Some of our presentations this afternoon are going to be live. In fact, the majority of them will be live, but there will also be some pre-recorded sessions. So thank you to those people who have pre-recorded sessions for this afternoon. And I think it'd be fairly obvious which ones they are. There is an opportunity in the program just to ask some questions. So if you want to do that, then feel free to use the Zoom chat. Feel free to use the chat on YouTube as well. And if you do get dropped out or lose your way this afternoon, then you can contact us on that email address and somebody will be able to help you get back in. So you've probably already seen the agenda for this afternoon. So we're very grateful to all the speakers who are contributing to this afternoon, particularly Matthew Hale and Emma Gibbs, who are existing Koha customers who are sharing their experiences this afternoon. So we're ever so grateful for them for doing that. So just before we get underway, just a little bit about us. So PTFS Europe as a company have been around for 13, 14 years now, and our specialty really is open source software. That's what we do. So this afternoon really is all about Koha, which is really the main software product that we work with at the moment, which is the open source library management system. And obviously we support a lot of customers using that primarily in the UK, but also across the whole of Europe. So just a very brief background to Koha who haven't come across it before. It's extensively used across the world, often described as the most deployed library management system in the world. It's very standards compliant, but it's also backed by a large community of people like us across the world in different countries who support and contribute to the Koha community. And they're a mixture really of developers, librarians, and libraries who actually use the software. So it's a real sort of mixed and vibrant community. And again, we'll be talking a little bit about that during the afternoon. And we're just one of the many companies worldwide that support and sort of assist with the development and progress of Koha. So we're just a small part of a very big community, and we love being part of that community. And one of the main things that we do really is we don't sell software as such. We sell our services and professional time. The software is free. But we do help people with things like data migration and training and integration and ongoing support and so on. We're very active already in the health sector. So these are just some of the customers that we work with. So you'll be hearing this afternoon from Worcestershire Health Libraries and from the King's Fund, but we work with many other health libraries as well and have done for quite a number of years. So it's a sector we're sort of very close to. And hopefully, again, you'll get a feel of that as the afternoon goes on. So that's a very brief introduction from me and for the afternoon. So the first session is one of our pre-recorded sessions, and that is Matthew Hale from the King's Fund, and I think you'll find his presentation very interesting and enlightening. So I hope you enjoy.
And I'm just going to jump in and say hello again. Hopefully my microphone now working. Apologies for that little glitch at the start.
Good afternoon, and thank you to Andrew and PTFS Europe for the invitation to speak today. I've been working with library management systems for nearly 30 years, over 15 years at the King's Fund, and nearly 11 of those with Koha, which is obviously the focus of my talk this afternoon. The King's Fund is essentially a think tank, an independent charitable organisation working to improve health and care in England. We're located in Cavendish Square in central London. We can look across the square to the Royal College of Nursing. If you turn right onto the square, the next turning on the right is Harley Street, and a bit further along, the first left is Wimpole Street, home to the Royal Society of Medicine. Some of the Royal Colleges are within a pleasant walking distance. The library operates under a public library licence, and the catalogue contains around 136,000 bibliographic records relating to health and social care management and policy. Strengths of the collection are a complete set of King's Fund publications dating back to 1898 and grey literature. With diminishing footfall, we've seen become increasingly focused on a remote user base, and while the library remains shut since the first lockdown, we've moved to home working, including running our inquiry service fairly seamlessly. We're active in the health library community, filling formal roles and building informal links with several organisations. Among our products, we provide a popular twice-weekly health management and policy alert, and in normal times, and in a less formal atmosphere, we run a health and medical themed book group and local walking tours. We consider ourselves to be a modern, forward-thinking library, but less than 15 years ago we were much more traditional. The impetus for change was the conversion of our old library space into a 200-seater auditorium. The library has moved to a much smaller physical space, necessitating 2/3 of our stock being moved to storage. We were told to focus on our external audience, to modernise services, and we were given income generation targets. This presented a prime opportunity to innovate, and we started trying out open source programs, things like a wiki, blogs, feed aggregators, and data visualisations. We hosted these locally at first, then on an external server as they proved successful, and we made a commitment to open source in principle and in practice as we looked to use open source software for core functions. The King's Fund was the first European CERSI customer in 1990, but by 2009, the year of Barack Obama's inauguration for topical context, we'd become somewhat disenchanted with the way the company, by then CERSI Dynex, had changed and the direction product development was taking. We were relying by then on a creaking, near end-of-life workflow system. We'd heard of Koha, and out of interest installed and tried it out on a local machine, but didn't consider it seriously until PTFS Europe emerged as a viable support company. We invited them over for a chat in September 2009, and the whole company came along. That was just Jonathan, Nick and Ian in those days. From a library perspective, Koha fitted our commitment to open source, sense of innovation, and gave us freedom to develop away from proprietary control. With no comparable Koha libraries in the UK, rather than examples and case studies, we trusted our judgment and the knowledge of PTFS Europe. For our IT department, they knew Nick, Jonathan and Ian from the old CERSI days, and were delighted at the thought of shutting down the old Solaris servers in the machine room, with PTFS Europe taking on the hosting and support of the library system. For finance and senior management, reeling along with the rest of the country from the financial crisis of 2008, the idea of initial and incrementally larger year-on-year savings was very appealing. With that broad support from the organisation, we acted swiftly And in December 2009, just as Rage Against the Machine made Christmas #1, we made the pioneering move to Koha. Everything went smoothly for a variety of reasons. PTFS Europe were experts in our existing system, so I had no problem in extracting, cleaning and manipulating our data. Koha was just clear and easy. Training sessions finished early as everyone was quickly comfortable with the functionality. We were able to rationalise and simplify workflows and data structures as part of the process. And we had a talented and enthusiastic library staff who bought into Koha and the concept of open source more generally. The success of our move to Koha was recognised internally and externally. It raised our profile and gave us a sense of confidence that helped forge a new identity, independence and purpose for the library. We were very happy to contribute our time to the Koha community in satisfying a high level of interest from the very start from other libraries by hosting visits and giving talks to describe our overwhelmingly positive experience. The slide highlights just the health-related organisations that we've spoken to. There were many more. The success with Koha empowered us to increase our use of open source to meet core functionality needs. Over the years, we've utilised open source in a range of scenarios. Similarly to our Koha arrangement with PTFS Europe, Co-Sector at the University of London host and support our online archive of King's Fund publications, which uses a grassroots open source stack called Samvera, of which we currently use the front-end application Haiku. We were early adopters of that technology and enthusiastic members of the open source community. The functionality allows us to search a collection of nearly 2,000 King's Fund publications dating back to 1898. To limit the search using various facets, or by date range, and to view the full publication using the embedded universal viewer. We can also search within the document using IIIF search. The Library Inquiry database allows us to store data from our inquiry service, building a searchable knowledge base of over 5,500 questions and answers, as well as recording a range of usage statistics. The code is all written in-house using the common open source LAMP development stack. The primary function is to record new inquiries with user details, details about the inquiry including relevant subjects, and the full text of the question and answer. These can all be searched by any combination of those categories and date range. And the interface allows the recording of basic statistics, including visitors to the library and any basic inquiries that we get. A range of statistics are displayed on the screen to brighten it up a bit, and the inquiry database continues to be developed in-house according to user requests and requirements. This has recently included improvements to the user interface, additional categories and subjects, and a script to anonymise data for GDPR purposes. We host our own version of the open source Metabase program to generate statistics and data visualizations, not just from Koha, but other sources such as our inquiry database and Google Analytics for Opac and archive stats. We've looked to open source solutions and open standards in all aspects of our work, not just the large projects. This presentation, for example, was put together with a variety of open source tools as listed. Web Slides actually provides the potential to create far more impressive slides than my rather ham-fisted design skills have illustrated here. To reflect those developments, we've devised a library technology strategy, which explains our use and choice of open source. It describes our ongoing work and commitment to choose the best solutions in a constantly changing environment. Current plans include hoping to move to Elasticsearch as the search engine for Koha, completing a process to upload born digital documents and additional content formats to our digital archive, and exploring the use of IIIF image annotations to create online displays or exhibitions. 2020 has been similar in some ways to the situation we experienced in 2009. A desperate economic situation causing great pressure on libraries and the need to innovate in response to unexpected challenges. Adopting Koha and open source more generally to help address those problems is now a much easier decision to make for a range of reasons. Open source is winning the argument. In virtually every technological context, open source is now an accepted, if not preferred, option. In 2009, anti-open source rhetoric known as fear, uncertainty and doubt, or FUD, was widespread and dangerous, the anti-Koha document promoted by Cersei Dynix being an example. By 2020, FUD is generally seen as anachronistic, and even a source of some amusement. Even Microsoft, one of the bastions of proprietary opposition to open source in 2009, apparently now loves Linux, committing massive resources to make key elements of its own code open source, as well as supporting the open source community and individual projects. The open source development model, with developers around the world working collaboratively on a project, has gradually won all arguments around quality of code, security, and response to user requirements. Koha is a much more complete and documented product now, where we had to make tweaks to the source code in the early days to achieve customizations. There are often now easier options and simple system preferences, as Janet described at the recent KohaCon. There are more libraries to look at as models to visit physically or virtually and to speak to. Koha is now a truly global system and everyone uses the same core version, translated into around 45 languages, and code is being shared, not only functionality that individual libraries have sponsored or developed back into the main Koha system, but customizations and snippets. So you might, for example, find the SQL syntax for a report you need in the community shared reports library. The open source model has been proved to work financially, as it has delivered long-term cost savings for the client and sustainability for companies which host, support and develop open source. PTFS Europe has demonstrated this sustainability. The company now numbers, I believe, 17 staff, which allows specialisation of roles, and you can see the benefit of that in areas such as upgrades, which are now more regular, structured and smooth. They also have all those years of experience in supporting a range of library types and sizes, and managing conversions for all manner of existing systems. I just wanted to conclude by reflecting on the experience of the last 10 months in the context of Koha. As libraries across the world have faced unforeseen and unimagined financial and practical challenges, we've seen the benefits of Koha as a cost-effective, robust, flexible system, and also the value of the global Koha community to contribute support, enthusiasm, ideas and solutions to help meet those challenges. The strength of an open source project lies in its dedicated and enthusiastic community of developers and users, and I hope this event today will lead to closer future ties between Koha libraries in the health sector.
Thank you very much, Matthew. That was great. Matthew is here in the conference today live, as well as on that great video presentation. So if you would like to ask him any questions about the King's Fund and about their journey through open source software, and obviously particularly about their experience with Koha, then please do put questions into the chat channel, either in Zoom, for those of you in the Zoom session, or on the YouTube live stream, and we will get back to you with answers to those questions. I'd now like to introduce Lucy Vox-Harvey from PTFS Europe, who's going to do a presentation and a tour of the Koha Opac and look at Koha particularly from the library user perspective. Lucy, over to you.
Thanks, Andrew. Thank you very much. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, hopefully everybody can see a web page here showing NHFT library services. Do just shout up if you can't see that. So yeah, hello, my name's Lucy Vox-Harvey. I'm Senior Customer Services Consultant at PTFS Europe. And my talk today is Koha for the Health Library user. So it's going to be very much a practical hands-on with me showing you some parts of the Koha Opac this afternoon. So I'm going to concentrate on the Opac, which is the public catalogue for Koha. Really just an overview this afternoon, so I've got 20 minutes and we're going to stick strictly to time. So I've got Andrew watching the clock for me. And yeah, I'm just going to pick out a few areas really to look at this afternoon. Later on, Fiona is going to do a demonstration where she's going to show you the staff interface. So she's going to show you the staff side of Koha as well. So the three things I'm going to look at this afternoon are adding content and some styling to your Opac. So how you can tailor the Opac for your own user base and for your own services. Then I'm going to have a look at finding resources, so running searches, what you can do with your search results in terms of saving those, perhaps exporting them, and how to extend your searches from Koha. And then finally, I'm going to have a look at the My Account feature. So this is where your users can log in, check the activity on their account, check the status of requests, that kind of thing. So those are the three areas I'm going to look at. So I'm going to start with adding content and styling, and I'm going to use an example of one of our current NHS customers. So this is Northamptonshire Healthcare Foundation Trust. They went live with Koha earlier this year, and in fact they went live I think 2 days before national lockdown. So I think it's probably a week they're never going to forget. They went live with a new library management system and then went straight into lockdown, had to work from home and all of that kind of thing. So actually, I think moving to Koha was a good godsend for them, because they did, I think initially they were all working at home. And of course, Koha is completely web-based. So they could carry on getting used to the system and setting things up and changing services and that kind of thing on Koha from home as well. So that was a good thing in terms of that, I suppose. Okay, so Northamptonshire haven't really changed very much from the delivered Opac as it is installed, really. They have added quite a bit of content though. Just to pick out a few things, really. They've got some links added here on the left-hand side, so links to other services or to other online resources that they might have. Very easy to add these yourself. It's all very obvious in the administration area within the staff interface, which Fiona will show you later on. So just some sort of system preferences that you use to add content here. They've added a carousel of book covers in the middle section of the Opac. This is something that we need to set up for you initially. So it needs some configuration in the background, but once it's up and running, you can control which book covers display from either a list or a report in Koha. So it's very easy to maintain that going forward. And then they've also added their Twitter feed on the right-hand side as well. So they've got some currency to the content on their Opac, it's kept up to date. And again, this is managed through a system preference that you have access to very easily in the systems administration module. Just a little bit of code that you add in there. So very, very easy to maintain. In terms of styling and design, Northampton haven't really opted to make many changes, but you can completely transform the look and feel of the Opac if you wanted to. So you can change background colours, fonts and styles and that kind of thing. And again, this is done within the system preferences within the admin module. So hopefully later on, Fiona's going to sort of show you and highlight a few areas where this can be done, so you can see the sort of area and see how that works in the background. But really just to give you an idea of the sort of things you can do. In terms of a new project, we discussed with you very early on if there's any special requirements that you need for the Opac and any sort of ideas for things that you might want to do. Then during the training, we will cover how to make those changes yourself, where you need to go within the admin screens in order to add this content or make any style changes. And then as you prepare to go live, obviously we're on hand to help you and to add some of that code if you need. If you don't have anybody in-house, you can do that yourselves. You know, we can help you with the styling and with adding the content as well. So it's certainly not something that you're sort of left to do on your own. So that's just a quick look really at sort of how you would add content and sort of the options that you've got available to you. So I'm going to move across now to one of our internal demo sites. And I'm going to show you some how to find information, how to search. I'm going to place some requests as well. So obviously I can't do that on the Northamptonshire site. So I've come across to our demo site here, just demo Koha. And I'm going to run a quick search. So community nursing. It's a very simple search box on the homepage of the Opac. It's keyword search, and generally, although you can set the sorting, which is here, sorting for your search results, most people leave the default as relevant. So you've got a keyword search that sorts by relevance, which is very familiar to most people. It's how sort of most search engines would work. You can do a more specific search if you wanted to. So on the homepage, you have got access to different indexes, so you can search by title, author, etc. And these are my search results that have come back here. So I've got 20 results showing. I'm not sure that our bibliographic database in this demo system is that up to date. So we've got a few cover images missing here, but I think if I scroll down, yeah, you can see some book covers coming through here automatically. So you can either set those to come from Amazon or Google. If you don't subscribe to any sort of enhanced content services, you get those free book covers instead. So the first thing to point out really here is that on this demo system, we have done some customization. So in the delivered Opac, links to place reservations, request articles are just textual links, whereas here we've converted them into buttons. So we've done that again with a bit of CSS code, again, which is very accessible to you in the staff interface to make those changes. And I think if we scroll further down, we've highlighted the electronic resource links, which again would just be textual links in the delivered Opac. But here we've added an icon, some colours, just so that it makes the electronic resource link stand out a little bit more. So again, just some more ideas of what you can do. So I'm just going to place an article request really just to sort of show you the sort of things you can do from here. So if I click on request article, first thing I'm asked to do is to log in, which I can just log into my, oh, sorry, can't make any requests from that material. Just bear with me, let me just go back. Pick the right one. Okay, so the journal article feature is actually quite new to Koha. It's one of these features that's been added to the core code. It's not something you need to buy as an extra module. It comes with sort of standard Koha. It's very easy to enable if you want to use it. If you don't want to use it, you can disable it, and it doesn't show anywhere within the catalogue. So you wouldn't see those links if you didn't have it enabled. It doesn't appear in sort of policy lists and that kind of thing in the staff interface as well. So it's one of those things you can choose to use if you wish to, but if not, you can just turn it off. And it allows your users to request photocopies of journal articles that you have in stock. So it could be electronic journals as well as print journals. I'm just going to add in a quick title in here. Doing a bit of a topical one today. And you can see that you could add in, I can add in a volume and issue number here if I wanted to, and some page numbers. And then I just place request. So it's a nice simple online form that you use. And this takes you through, once you've completed the screen, completed the form, it takes you through to your account, which we're going to come back and look at in a little bit anyway. But you can see here that I've got my article request link here. It's showing a status of pending. And this request has now been sent through to the staff interface to be picked up by members of staff and to be dealt with and obtained from them. And again, I think this is something that Fiona's going to show you when she does her demonstration. She's actually going to have a look at this request on the staff side and see what you would do to manage that request. And as it goes through that process of being obtained and completed, the status will change in here. So your users can see how that request is being processed as well. So I'm just going to go back onto the home screen. Just going to run that search again. So we've looked at search results, just picked up one of these sort of services that you can offer. If I have a look at the cart now, just to show you how you can save some of these results as well and what you can do with those. So if I just tick a couple of results here, I can either add items actually in this demo system. This is another example of where we've customized a little bit. I'm calling it the cart here, which is a temporary sort of folder where you can add records or your search results to. We've actually renamed it as folder because we didn't like it as cart. So again, something else that you can do, you can relabel options in the Opac so that they sort of fit for your services and for your users as well. So if we wanted to add those to the cart, we could do it individually from the button, but we could also use this add to option at the top here. So I ticked 3 items here. I've added them to my folder and they're now available here. So if I click into there, you can see that they're saved in here. Now I can email them to myself, so I could send those as an email to myself for reference. I could download them, and one of the options there is, if I choose a format here, you see RIS, that will export those records into a standard format that you can use in bibliographic software. So if someone was doing some research, they could export those in the correct format for using them within their own software packages. And also by selecting some or all of them, you can place holds, so place multiple holds all at one time on everything in your cart as well. So quick way of placing reservations. I haven't really got time to show you placing reservations today. Okay, so that's your cart. If you wanted to keep search results for longer, you can use lists instead. So you can create your own lists, and these are retained within your account. So a user could come back and log in another time and their list would still be there. So the folder is a temporary holder, if you like, for search results, whereas lists is more permanent. And you can use the lists as well as library staff to create reading lists and that kind of thing as well. So here you can see there's a number of sort of reading lists here of catalogue records as well. Okay, very quickly, if I just go, because I can see I've got about 5 minutes left. If I go into a record itself, just so you can see a little bit of detail here. This is a detailed record, so you've got the bibliographic details at the top, and then you've got the holdings records underneath. So this has just got one item attached to it. You can see you can add little icons. You can choose which columns display here, so you can customize that as you wish. And also within the bibliographic record, you've got these nice hyperlinks. So if I clicked on any of these, Koha would run another keyword search on these terms, so you can sort of extend your search if you wanted to. I was just going to pick out a couple of things on here. One of them is more searches. which is quite a nice, useful research resource, and I thought might be useful for perhaps students, nursing and medical students who might be linked to who would be linked to a local university. So you could add university in here as a search target, and if you clicked on here, it would search for this book within that library catalogue. So might be a useful way again of extending your searches to look in other catalogues. And finally on here, send to device is a nice new feature that's just been added to Koha in the last couple of versions. It allows you to scan a QR code just to save a record very quickly. So you could save it to your phone for later. So again, all ways that you can sort of make use of your catalogue search results and save them and use them later. So that's sort of a real sort of picking and choosing some things from the search and search results really to show this afternoon. The final thing I wanted to look at was my account. So it's hidden behind my little box here, but I can click on my name up here and go to my account. It's a very clear screen here. I mean, this is our demo system, so we've got lots of content on there and lots of things switched on. But down here, you see we've got this summary of different tabs, so you can very clearly see what you've got out on loan, what's overdue, what charges you have. I'm a member of a club here, so this is, I think, a reading group. I'm a member of a club. Shows my reservations, so any holds that I've got within the system. Again, it very clearly shows me this one's waiting for me to pick up, this one's in transit to the library that I want to pick it up from, this one's outstanding. So very, very clear sort of layout for your users to use. And here at the end is my article request that I placed a bit earlier. Lots of options for your users to see their search history, check their privacy, all sorts of options down the left-hand side here, which I haven't got time to go into. The only thing I did want to show you was the interlibrary loan requests. So similar to the journal article request that I did earlier, but obviously that was just from stock within the catalogue, whereas interlibrary loan requests would be requests for material at other libraries. I've got a few requests here outstanding already. I'm just going to create a new request so you can see how it works. I've got two places to request from. One is the British Library, so that's the British Library Document Supply Service. And then there's a generic form as well. So you choose really which forms you make available on the Opac. I'm going to do a BLDS search. Copyright clearance declaration, first of all, which I need to accept. And then I see a form to fill in. Now, actually here we're linked to the British Library API. So we're actually going to search the British Library in real time. Hopefully I've picked an example that will bring us back some results. I'm just picking from the Lancet Journal. It's a journal article. Education Library. So this has brought back results from the British Library. And if I can find the article that I want, I can just going off the screen at the side, whoops. I can just request that. So I'm just going to click on request there. And that's now in my list down here, and it's showing as a new request. Now again, hopefully Fiona's going to get the chance to show you that request within the ILL module in Koha on the staff side later on this afternoon, and she can show you how you would then process that request. So I'm nearly out of time, I think. So hopefully that's given you a sort of brief overview. Hope it's shown you how easy it is to customize the Opac for your needs, how easy it is for your users to make use of the Opac and the catalogue and to find resources. and hopefully it's shown you how sort of Koha has lots of different capabilities, lots of different features, things being sort of added all the time. So thank you very much for your time. I think there's going to be opportunities for questions later on.
Thank you, Lucy.
Thank you.
That's terrific. It's dead on time as well. Thank you. That's
really I know.
Great.
Did you hear me rushing at the end?
No, it was great.
There's a couple of things I didn't get to show you, but.
Well, no problem. If anyone does have any questions for Lucy or indeed for Matthew, please pop them in the chat in either the Zoom session or on YouTube. We are having 5 minutes after the next presentation to answer any questions, and you feel free to put your microphone on at that point and ask questions as well. Thanks again, Lucy. Jonathan's now going to take over, and he's going to be doing a presentation about implementing a library management system during a global pandemic. As Lucy mentioned, we did complete Northamptonshire's implementation during this year, and a number of other implementations in other sectors of all different sizes. So Jonathan, over to you for a bit more about how it's possible.
Thanks very much. Yeah, it was interesting because Lucy sort of did touch on it there at the very beginning with Northamptonshire, and Lucy and Janet and Fiona, you may well think that this year has been a quiet year for them. I think they'd probably beg to differ on that front. So just thought really I'd talk a little bit about implementing library management system during a global pandemic and whether that's just a crazy, outlandish idea. So I guess first of all, the sort of things we're hearing from people at the minute, why they don't want to implement a library management system right now. Well, for one, their budgets have been slashed, or not necessarily slashed, but money has been diverted into other areas, or budgets are put on hold. So that's a big concern for people right now. There's fears that because people are distributed so far, a project's totally impractical. Staff, in many cases, are all working at home, or they're slowly progressing back to work into the office. So that's potentially seen as a problem for people. Historically, library management systems have been systems that have been based, inside the institution, as Lucy mentioned, at Northamptonshire they had a legacy system that was on site in the library. So potentially, if you are working from home, you have no access to that system, even if you wanted to do migration. Time has been diverted just dealing with day-to-day issues with COVID. So how are we going to manage click and collect, all those sort of issues that we've heard so much about this year? Haven't got regular access to the help and resources that you need. So the barriers sort of go on and on, really. But just sort of breaking those down a little bit. So first of all, going back to the budgets have been slashed or redeployed. In many cases, that is true, but what we typically find is that pandemic or no pandemic, libraries typically are paying over the odds for their library management system and have been for a number of years. And typically what we find with libraries who move to Koha is that in their in year one, they'll make a saving on their library management system, and they'll make significant savings over the years that follow on from that, particularly in a 3 to 5 year period. So just to give you a sort of example of that, so one library that implemented Koha this year, they saved 50% on their library management system over 5 years. So the library director and the finance director were absolutely delighted, because for them that was equivalent to tens of thousands of pounds over a 3 to 5 year period. And actually, in fact, the year one cost of implementing Koha was actually less than they were paying for their existing library management system. So again, the finance director was absolutely delighted with that kind of saving. And that saving allowed them to redeploy the money they were spending on the back-end library management system into other parts of the services. When you spread that across 2 to 3 years and sort of even the cost out, then that also is a useful way that some of our libraries use to sort of smooth the cost. And I think importantly, historically, the library management system has been the sort of deep pockets of the library budget. Large amounts of money are spent on the back-end library management systems. These days, the importance of the back-end library management system is perhaps not what it was. Certainly when I started working in library automation, 25 years ago. But today, more importantly, you have things like e-resources, and particularly at the moment when ebooks are so important, when people can't get into libraries, then the ability to be able to redirect money and resources to other parts of the library service is often welcomed. So we can't do the project remotely. Well, we've done a lot of sort of projects remotely this year and conferences, as you probably have seen. And actually, Janet, Fiona and Lucy, between them, they've implemented over 12 library systems this year, and all of those have been done remotely during the pandemic. So it's definitely possible. Interesting enough, and some of you may already know this, we've always been a virtual company when we started. Matthew had alluded to it when we all came on see him on site back in 2010. We've always been a virtual company, so we're very used to working from home, and we've been doing it for a long time, and we have the processes in place to do that. And we also have all the tools available to do that as well. So we're very familiar with running meetings through Zoom and have been for a number of years prior to the pandemic through Microsoft Teams. Our YouTube channel, as you'll see, has been very active as well. And actually, one of the things we've found, interestingly, more this year, because we haven't been able to visit people on sites, there are actually some distinct benefits of actually doing remote projects as well. So, for example, the ability to record training for future reference. So we had an example just a couple of days ago, a help desk inquiry where somebody asked a question, and actually we were able to refer them back to the part in their training course that was recorded, where they could go up and actually look at and watch the sort of scenario being played out. So that's had some benefits. There's no traveling for staff between sites or from home into the office, so that's been useful. Booking training rooms, in our experience, is always a nightmare. Getting hold of the training room, it's always busy and booked, so that's been a nice challenge not to have. And less distractions, possibly, although of course all your staff are working from home, and you can see in the bottom right hand corner the distraction I had in my office last Friday, just trying to get some work done. But it is great, and I think Janet alluded to this on the presentation she did back in our customer day back in September, that we've all had to adapt together in some ways, some shape or form. And we're all facing similar challenges at this time. So as I said, we're very familiar, we're working at home, we're very used to it. But typically those of us with families, we're used to working at home quietly without any interruptions. Whereas now, our staff are having to deal with exactly the same challenges that I'm sure your staff are having to deal with. That's balancing work with homeschooling and so on. I think our staff have found that in some ways this remote training is a little bit more personal almost than being on site. You almost get literally a sort of insight into people's homes, and they get an insight into your homes. Again, it's something that our staff have sort of mentioned that's made it very sort of personal. Cats walking across the keyboard, dogs interrupting and having to be fed, and so on. It does become a little bit more personal. And as part of that, we've adapted, I would say, a more flexible approach to the way we've implemented systems to accommodate a lot of this. So Janet and her team have introduced sort of shorter, broken down training courses, because spending, as I'm sure you're aware, spending a long time on Zoom is mentally tiring and not easy. So we've broken down training sessions into smaller blocks, broken up with exercises, more tea breaks and so on, that sort of thing. So in a lot of cases, libraries are shut right now. Some are obviously opening back up, so it's a bit of a hybrid approach. Staff either in the office or at home. Um, and what we have, the feedback we have had is that people who have moved to Koha has actually made it easier when they haven't had access to the physical building. And again, Lucy alluded to that a little bit earlier on, that when you have a library management system like Koha, you can do everything through the web browser. So you're not worrying about the thick client. And historically, where you've had a sort of thick client type of installation, you need the IT staff to help you get set up, which means that you need to help get set up a home as well. Again, of course, with Koha, it's all through a web browser, so there's no need to have the IT people invading your house. Koha is a responsive application. It has been for many, many years, and that means you can run it on a tablet or a phone. So actually, you don't really even need to be in your own home. You can be in you can be outdoors. You can be anywhere and run Koha on any device. And one of the beauties of that, often with mobile applications, you don't get a fully functional library management system. As Lucy said, with Koha, there's no license fee as such, so you get access to everything in the system, everything down to those article requests into library loans. You get a fully functional library management system. So people have been very busy with COVID issues. Yes, I think that's true. Libraries are always busy places, of course. But interesting just to share a couple of bits of feedback we've heard throughout this year. Firstly, that the libraries who have implemented have actually found it beneficial and an opportunity to be able to implement different parts of the services in a staggered manner, so not necessarily having to go for a sort of big bang approach. And big benefit is opportunity to test things without the users around. So in the case of, particularly with our public libraries, there's hasn't been a huge demand on reservations certainly in the early part of the pandemic. Great opportunity to test that all your rules work without the end users being there. I mentioned about not having access to help or resources. Well, of course, we're still here, and behind us is a huge community of thousands of Koha users worldwide. And if anything, I think we've certainly probably been more active this year remotely than ever before. And I think that's true of some of our companies that we work with throughout the world. There was even the Koha user group meeting in New Zealand, which was broadcast across the world last month. So still a lot of support out there. And that's really what open source is about. It's about actively collaborating, sharing, and promoting Koha. So we're all here to help. And as I mentioned, we've deliberately this year created extra content because we can't be on site training people face to face, which we love to do, but we're not being able to do that. So we've created a fortnightly, almost a video style blog really, called What's on Our Mind. And that's a very short, digestible video, usually 5 to 10 minutes on a specific topic. And we've had great feedback on those, and we're intending to keep those up indefinitely. We've done a lot of free webinars like the one we're doing today. We've done others, our customer day as well, so that's been great. Our YouTube channel has become particularly busy this year with content. And I guess where we're slightly different perhaps from proprietary companies is with proprietary companies, you often find a lot of promotional information on their YouTube channels. Ours is all instructional content. So videos about how to do things, how to create reports, charts, inquiries, and so on. It's all instructional information. We've had a customer forum for quite a number of years. That's again been particularly busy this year, and particularly with a lot of topics that everybody is suffering with, I guess, in terms of sharing of similar problems, changing due dates, click and collect issues. So we've had great feedback from that as well. And just really to finish off, one of the things with open source that we certainly feel is that there's a lot of synergy between what we believe are the values of open source and what we see as the values of libraries. So libraries are typically all about collaboration and community, privacy and security of their patrons and members, all about promoting truth and freedom of information, standards and preservation, of course. And that's, again, themes that you see constantly throughout, not just Koha as an open source project, but open source projects generally. So I've already mentioned Koha is a large community who collaborate. Koha, you can look inside it. It's not just a black box of proprietary software. And again, Matthew touched on that. It's you can look at it. It's highly visible in terms of the QA. Tend to have more information neutrality, tends to be less susceptible to information restrictions. So that's another sort of theme of open source. And of course, really, open source couldn't operate at all without following international standards. And there's obviously a huge number of international standards in IT, but there's also a lot of international standards in libraries as well, as you know. So there are a lot of synergies between the two things. So I guess reasons why implementing a library management system during a pandemic is a good idea. You'll almost certainly save money, regardless of when you do it. We've got all the tools in place to do a project remotely. We don't mind whether your staff are at home or in the office. We can accommodate either. There's lots of help available to you out there, some of it from us, some of it from other places. Your library management system is in the cloud, so you don't have to be on site to use it. You can use it from anywhere. And interesting enough, in some ways, COVID-19 does create opportunities. And I guess the libraries that we have implemented this year are probably in the glass half full category, that they've seen this as an opportunity, a period of time where that maybe they won't have again, and there is an opportunity to look at freshly at the library management system and do something exciting. So that's been great. But at the end of the day, we don't really quite know how long this is going to go on. I mean, we're hoping that next year things will be better, but we're not really quite sure when. And to be honest, everything that I've spoken about, the principles are true whether COVID is here or not. So, Koha and open source is value for money. There is a vibrant community behind it. Your library management system is in the cloud. That's all true regardless of whether COVID is here or not. So we feel there are a lot of same principles there regardless. And we've done a lot of fast track implementations this year. So in fact, one library specifically asked us to move them to Koha very quickly because they wanted a web-based system that they could use from home. And again, Lucy alluded to that a little bit earlier. So it's been quite a busy year for us. So no, you're not totally mad if you fancy doing a library management system at this time or in the near future, and we'd be very happy to talk to you about that. So thank you for that. I think we've got a few minutes now just for take any questions if anybody has any, either for any of the PTF Assurance staff or any of our speakers for that matter who are here.
Jonathan, thank you very much. We have had a couple of questions come into the chat channel. In particular, there's a question: why we are being encouraged to move towards shared LMSs in NHS libraries. Can I find out more about how this works? For example, how much customization do the participating members of the consortium get, or do all decisions need to be implemented across the whole shared system?
Okay, that's a good question. So we already work with some sort of libraries, NHS libraries who work together, as well as libraries in other sectors. In particular, the South London Health libraries, who are really, I think, 5 or 6 different hospitals or hospital trusts that work together, and they very much do their own thing and work independently. So Koha does allow you to either work as a group. I mean, obviously there are benefits of having shared policies and shared working practices, but Koha does allow you to operate independently as well. So you can have separate search groups, separate sets of patrons. You could even go down as far as having separate Opacs as well. So at the end of the day, it depends how closely you want to work together in that consortium. But yeah, certainly something we're very aware of, and Koha is very adaptable to that.
And then a question, the NHS and HEE is rolling out a new discovery service across England from 2021. How will Koha integrate with that to enable the user request and account functions that were showed earlier to be embedded into the discovery service rather than the Koha Opac?
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, discovery services historically have been very poor at doing any kind of patron type services. We've done quite a lot of work this year with EBSCO, who have been very good to work with. I mean, they have developed a plugin that works in the Koha Opac, and we have quite a lot of our libraries who use that. One of the benefits of having the discovery in the Koha Opac is that all the My Account facilities that Lucy showed you earlier are available to you in the normal way, as well as all the electronic content. So that's sort of flipping it on its head. I think there's still work to be done in terms of bringing the My Account facility into the actual discovery service. Again, we have done some work with EBSCO on that particular area, particularly with the other library management, open source library management system we work with, Folio. It's got a full patron functionality now in the discovery interface that works beautifully with that library management system, and we're also looking to do more in the Koha area as well on that.
Great, thank you, Jonathan.
Yeah.
There was one more question about single sign-on with Open Athens, and I think we've given the answer to that. That single sign-on is possible, and we can look at costs for that in quoting for the implementation at the outset of the project.
Yeah, that's right. It's normally a small cost just to do the sort of talking with the IT people, exchanging metadata and that sort of thing. But that's a very common thing we do in implementation projects. Yeah.
Great. I'm going to stop you there, Jonathan, in full flow, as we've just running a couple of minutes late now into the next presentation, which is going to be from Fiona Borthwick, who's going to talk, hopefully with a keen listening audience, about making life easier for the librarian with Koha. Fiona, over to you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I'm just sharing my screen. Hopefully everybody can hear me and see my screen. So I'm Customer Relationship Manager at PTFS Europe, and as Jonathan has mentioned earlier, you know, I've been heavily involved with some of the implementations that we've been running this year. So I've only got 20 minutes or even less now if we're a wee bit ahead, a wee bit behind in time. So as I'm sure you can appreciate, I can barely scratch the surface with a demonstration for Koha. So I've worked with Lucy to establish what we'll show. So I'll kind of back onto what she has done and show you the staff side of the requests and so on. But essentially, before I get to that bit, I just want to give you a little bit of an overview as to how easy Koha is to maintain. It's very lightweight, and I'm going to start by showing you some benefits of the Web Based LMS. Going to look at the administration area, and then I'll pick up on the bits that Lucy talked about as well. Okay, now Jonathan mentioned a few moments ago, Koha is completely web-based and uses responsive technology. So the staff client can also be used just on your mobile phone or anything. So it makes it an ideal solution for all devices. So firstly, you have to log in to the staff interface. So you must be a valid member of library staff with a username and a password, and if you're a multi-site system, you can select which library you're working at for that day. Benefits of doing that is that then all the transactions are stored against the correct library. Now, when you log in as well, your login record is associated with a set of permissions, and those permissions dictate what access you have into the system. So I've logged in as an administrator, so I can see everything, including things like the Koha administration panel here. But it may be that your systems team just want to control the administration and not give everybody access to that area. So that would be defined within the login permissions. And then, you know, the appearance of the screen would reflect that. So you maybe wouldn't see, for example, the admin button or the acquisitions button. So the module buttons are available on the home screen, and as Jonathan also mentioned, you do get everything with the system, so you can switch things off with permissions and also with the administration tools as well. You can access the areas from the links at the top as well, and you've got your More menu to take you into these other areas. Other things to note about the home screen is you can utilise the space. So if you wanted to put any links to resources, or some of our customers use this area on the left hand side to promote their daily tasks list and that kind of thing, you can use that. And in addition, we've got the section at the bottom. So this top bit here is our dashboard, and I'll come back to that in just a little while. And then, because it's our demo system, we've got lots of shortcuts on it to things, but it gives you a little bit of an idea as well as to how you can use this area. So we could put, for example, links to heavily used reports that library staff need to run regularly. They could just be accessed from the home page. Finally, before I move on, just to highlight to you as well, we've got the online help area here, and this is fully context sensitive, and it does direct you out into the Koha manual. So because we're at the home page, it takes us to the contents page of the manual, but if we were working within a particular page, it would give us the help file for that page. Okay. So I'm going to start by just showing you a wee bit of its flexibility and how things can easily be linked together. So we've got this area up at the top. Now we call this an Omnibox. Basic area where you can toggle between different transactions to put in your terms. So if I go to search the catalogue, for example, it's asking me to enter search keywords. If I go to issue, it's asking me to put a card number or partial name in, that sort of thing. And again, that is context sensitive. So for example, if I went into the acquisitions module, it changes and my box becomes a search for vendors and for orders. Okay. I'm just going to show you some navigational links between records. So if I just bring up a test record of mine on the system, because I've looked for it by the card number, it's pulled through taking me straight into the record. You get your breadcrumb trail along this bar, so you can always navigate yourself back. You've got an area at the top where you can go into edit records, change passwords, etc. And down at the left-hand side, you've got access into a lot of the menu options, very similar to what Lucy said with the Opac. But before I show you the record linking, I also wanted to just highlight the user messaging preferences area. So this is where you can specify what notices you're going to send from Koha and whether they'll be sent by email. And we do also integrate with SMS gateway providers as well. So you can see in this case, this reserve item available is set to send an SMS to me, and I can get backup email as well. At the bottom, we've got our individual folders, so we can see, again, as Lucy described, we can see our list of checkouts and charges and reservations and so on. But what I wanted to show as well is the consistency of the display within Koha. Areas like this, you get a table format with columns, and they've all got column sorters on them. And it may be that, you can see here that the collection tab is mainly blank, so maybe we don't want to see that, and you can control which columns are visible on the screen and not just simply by doing that. And that can be set globally through the admin as well, if that's a preference. And because we've got column sorters, we can say, okay, let's see what my checkouts are in title order. And you can just toggle these arrows. Now, To show you sort of linking between records, so this is a checkout I've got, and the title of the item and the barcode are hyperlinks, so I can click on them and it will take me into the catalogue record. Now, the other thing to note is that because it's a web-based system, there's absolutely no limit to the number of tabs that you can be working with. So that can be really beneficial if you're working on a catalogue record, but then you have to go and serve somebody at the issue desk. You can just open a new tab. So we can do a right click, open link in a new tab, and it goes away and opens up for you. And from here, I can go back into my catalogue, into my user record if I wanted to. So you can easily see the different linking options that are available to you. Okay. Right, so that was a wee bit about sort of how easy the web navigation is and linking between different records. So I'm now going to take you into the administration area. And like I said at the start, this is permission controlled, but if you've got access into the area, you'll see that it's very well laid out. You've got the system preferences section here, which I'll talk about in a moment. But this is where you would come to define all your configuration. So this is where we would set up our item types and our user categories, our circulation rules, etc. But in addition to that, this is also where you would come in to work with your cataloging templates and your budgets and funds and so on. Now, obviously, I've not got much time, so I'm not going to go into any of these, but I am going to take you into the system preferences area. These are completely searchable and they're grouped together by module. And in Lucy's presentation, she said that it's possible to brand Koha by putting, by filling it with content. And I'm just going to touch on some of those bits that she showed. So for quickness, I'm going to search for them, but they are all contained within the Opac tab here. So the first one I'm going to show is Opac Nav. And this particular system preference, because it found the matches, so it gives me that, it searches across the preference name and the descriptions. And this is where Lucy showed, it was on the left-hand side of the Opac, where she said she could put links out to other resources or other sites or just general information. So it just uses HTML and you just populate it as text there. She showed you the My Account. Of course, you don't have to have My Account switched on. If you want to have it switched on, oh, sorry, wrong one. Well, I'll come back to it. If you want to have it switched on, you can then specify what text should be seen to assist your user in the login process. So in this case, it's saying to use the 16-digit library barcode. But if you don't want to have it switched on, you can simply disable it. So this is one of the on-off switches, so it's allow or don't allow. So we've looked at ones that impose HTML, we've looked at ones that you can just put straight text in, and this is a simple switch. Now, Lucy also showed you, she made reference to the QR codes. And again, that's governed by a system preference. So this is where you can say if it's enabled or disabled. So it was highlighted by Lucy in the detail display, but again, it can be switched off if preferred. And one I really quite like, and again, it ties in with something that Lucy showed. If you recall, she showed the area where you could repeat your search, and she said, you could do the search again, and it would look in those resources. And this preference here, Opac No Results Found, allows you to add some text. So if a user does a search in the catalogue, don't find any hits, you might want to direct them to one of those more searches options, because they might just find what they're looking for in there. And finally, in terms of branding and such like, you can change colours if you want. Koha uses style sheets, so you can use CSS to change fonts and colours, and you can put logos in place and all of that kind of thing. And I should also say that the same applies to the staff interface. You can brand it accordingly as well. Some of our customers have both a live and a test server, for example, and change the background colour of their test server so that it's clear which one they're working with. Now, in addition to those administration areas, you can also do some work in the tools area, and we can do things like batch item deletions and modifications for items, records and users. But another couple of things I just wanted to highlight, we've got our news area, which allows you to put sort of articles and news bulletins and such like on the Opac and the staff interface, and you can pre-publish, you can populate them and publish them at a later date. So that's quite a nice feature. But finally, in the tools area as well, I just wanted to highlight the notices. Now, as I showed you in the user record, you can specify what notices get sent to the users and in what method, and the notices and slips area within the tools allows you to modify the text of these. So if you were sending an overdue, for example, a second overdue, you can edit this and choose the relevant text and select from the database fields. So you can do that with any of them. So just a little bit more, I'm just watching my time. Lucy placed an article request and she placed an interlibrary loan request. So I'm now going to show you the staff's functions of those. So I'll start with the article request. Now, down on our home page in our dashboard area here, we can see that we've got a link to new article requests that are pending. So it's also available within the circulation module. But if I go into it from my dashboard, this brings us through. We can select our library and we can see that it's not the main library. What library were you at, Lucy? We'll just change it to
Education.
libraries. Thank you.
Education, I think, yeah.
There it is. Okay, so there's Lucy's article request that she placed earlier on. And what I would do then is I could come in and look at it. I can also see that Jonathan placed an article request, so I could deal with them at the same time. But if I just look specifically at Lucy's, I've got links into the title, into the user, and from the actions menu, I can then see what I'm doing with it. So I can process the request, and that would pop it into the processing tab. So then I would say, go to this shelf, take the journal off the shelf, photocopy it, and then when I was finished, I could complete the request and the user could be notified that it's available for them. That's it. That's all you have to do in the staff side. And also, see here as well, the article requests on the dashboard, the count has gone down because I've dealt with one. She also placed an interlibrary loan request, and if I come into the ILL area, you can see that the default is to view the interlibrary loan request. It tells you how many there are, and again follows the same pattern as all the pages in Koha. You've got the information presented in tables with column sorters. You can filter between dates and such like to get a shorter list, and you can navigate between your pages. You also have the search bar there, so if I wanted to see specifically what Lucy had entered as requests, I can put her name in there and it will refresh, and it's only finding 8. So there's the Lancet, that's the one that she did earlier. So again, I can pick this up as a member of library staff. We can see that this was a new request placed today using the British Library Service. So if I go to manage that request, I then have some options available to me. I can edit the request information here. I could edit the item's metadata using this button. I can delete the request, or or I can place the request with partners. Now, I'll show you this one. Although Lucy selected a British Library request, it is also possible to create interlibrary loans from other partner libraries. So we would just set that up in the configuration. You'd have your partner libraries configured as users. You select which one you want, and then you can send them an email asking them for that, and send the email buttons at the bottom. But if I just go to confirm the request, I'm happy with everything that's been put on here. So I confirm the request, it'll update. Because this is a British Library type of request, we get some information about money owing and so on. We can select what download format we want. So we say we want a 24-hour one and we want it of a standard quality, and then we can check the price. Okay, so it tells us how much it's going to cost us. And when we place the request, it would, obviously this is our demo system, so it isn't going to send it off, but in theory it would send it off to the British Library. In the interlibrary loans area now, and also Lucy would see it in her account in the Opac, that the status would be updated accordingly when it was actually sent off to the British Library. So you can see, for example, this one is one I requested from partners the other day. This one's been cancelled, this one's been completed. So the status gets updated throughout its journey. So I've shown you some advantages of using the web system. I showed you linking between records, and then I looked at what Lucy had done and showed you all from the back end as well. I think I'm out of time. I'd love to show you a lot more, but we just don't have the time. But hopefully the quick tour will have highlighted some of the benefits. You can see it's a good fit in your libraries, and obviously if you would like to know more or a detailed demo, then you can just let us know. So I think, Andrew, I've more or less done my time.
You've done brilliantly, Fiona. Thank you very much. Spot on with your timing.
Thank you.
Well done. So as Fiona said, if you do want to ask us any more, there's the opportunity, obviously, for the rest of this afternoon to post questions in the chat, and we'll get back to you there. I've popped a link in the chat to a feedback form, and there's an opportunity there to ask us for some more information, or just use our email address, sales@ptfs-europe.com, and I'll pop that in the chat in a minute. But right now I'm going to move us on to the next session, and this is a chat that I had with Emma Gibbs of the Worcestershire Health Libraries a few days ago about their experience implementing Koha and running with Koha over the last number of years. And Emma's here this afternoon as well, so as we go through the presentation, feel free to ask her any questions also. So joining us here today is Emma Gibbs, who's Resources Librarian at the Rowlands Library, which is part of Worcestershire Health Libraries. Emma, you're going to tell us about your Koha implementation, but first, perhaps if you could introduce us to Worcestershire Health Libraries and its role within the NHS Trust that you work for.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'm the Resources Librarian for Worcestershire Health Libraries. We have 3 main hospital sites that we cover as a group of libraries, which includes Redditch, Kidderminster and Worcester. We do have satellite sites at other community hospitals as well. So we cover Worcestershire Acute Hospitals NHS Trust and the newly named Herefordshire and Worcestershire Healthcare NHS Trust as well. We also collaboratively work with Herefordshire Clinical Library Service, and I am the administrator of the Koha Library Management System across those organisations.
Okay.
We serve around 7,500 members of staff, potentially, and we have a mixture of professional and paraprofessional staff working within the library sites. There are some unmanned sites, but mostly we are based within the Acute Trust under the HR Directorate and within the Learning Development section of that Directorate.
Okay, and how many books do you have across those libraries?
At the last count, there's about 18,000 books across all of the different sites. So quite a task to keep on top of all of those at inventory time.
I'm sure. And before Koha, what systems did you have in place across the libraries to manage your collections?
I'm going to be showing my age now, because when I first started in libraries, we used card indexing systems. So back in the 90s, so I used a typewriter and an accessions book. Then we actually moved forward out of the dark ages into using the Heritage Library Management System when we started to catalogue and classify our stock into a more formalised way. We used that for a year or two whilst we had some cataloguers professionally employed for us, which was, wild because we only had 1.5 members of staff before, and then we had 3 cataloguers across the county. And then we joined library services across different NHS organisations. So the Acute Trust was multiple different hospital services beforehand, and they joined all those libraries and health hospitals together. And that's where Worcester Health Libraries was formed. And then we found that Heritage Library Management System didn't meet our needs anymore. So we moved on to something called the CERSI Workflow System. And we had that for quite a lot of years, to be honest, with different connotations of the CERSI system. But it became very heavy and dependent on workstation licenses and big download packages, and our IT infrastructure just couldn't manage it anymore. So we started to look for alternatives that were lighter on the IT infrastructure.
So were those sort of reasons of it being cumbersome and heavy duty, were they the main reasons for you to look to change systems?
The existing system we had was very DOS Windows based, so you had multiple windows open all the time. It was very old fashioned. It didn't seem to move with technology and the way that people used computers at the time. And we had to do our own backups because we hosted our own server, and our IT support was pretty poor, to be quite honest. So we were doing a lot of stuff ourselves, and it was taking a lot of time out, and it just didn't fit our needs anymore. So we wanted to look for something, cheaper as well, because those big bulky packages are very expensive. The server cost, the hosting cost was massive as well. So we wanted to look for something that was, you could just pull off the shelves. It was a bit cheaper. It was lighter on our IT infrastructure. It was web-based, those types of things we were looking for. And it was also adaptable to our needs, and something like Koha has been very adaptable to personalise for us and how we can use it to meet our needs across multiple library sites as well.
Okay, and at the time, were there any sort of obstacles to changing? Were there any reasons why changing systems might have been difficult at the time? You get library staff that are very set within their ways and they don't like change. So you have to sell them, it's a very hard sell to make sure that people are aware of the change, the need for change, the positive aspects of change. Definitely moving away from our local IT, being reliant on our local IT infrastructure was a massive plus point. So that didn't need much convincing. At the time, cost, we're always being asked to save money. So it wasn't really a barrier, it was more a necessity to show that we could be more cost effective within the library services. Obviously, being our old system being desktop license dependent, having massive data files to download the actual software, that was, we didn't want that in the future, because the way people were moving and working around different desktop PCs, we couldn't be reliant on desktop licenses anymore. It needed to be a lot more flexible for us. So the web interface was a key thing as well. Moving it onto a cloud system was.
Yeah. So getting away from our old server, because with our old BT line that we had, it was very hit and miss, the connectivity, you know, and if it went down, it took maybe days, weeks to fix. So to take that away into a more managed, you know, cloud-based system was a massive positive for us, and it was something that needed to happen, definitely.
Okay, and can you remember if there were kind of in the evaluation, what were the key decisive factors that made you choose Koha above anything else?
Not going to lie, cost was a big factor. Because, you know, being open source, you get that side of things, you know, very easily, and also the PTFS support was very, you know, reasonable compared to, you know, hosting our system before. Being very light on our IT infrastructure was a massive thing. The ease of personalization, you know, how you can change things, you know, just simple things like salutation to job title, you know, needs jQuery, which goes above my head sometimes. But
Mine
you know,
too.
that personalization and just the intuitive use of Koha was what we saw from the demonstration when, you know, when we tendered, we had the people demonstrate, it was just way above what anybody else could offer us, really.
Okay, and when you got into the implementation itself, how did it go, and who was involved from the library side in the implementation process?
Okay, so I was in a different role at the time of the implementation. So I was the lead of the customer services team. So I was involved to ensure that all the customer services library assistants were aware of the changes, and I could give our perspective of how we wanted the system to work. We had a head of library and knowledge services who was leading the project, and then we had the then electronic resources librarian, who is now working for PTFS, Lucy.
That would be Lucy.
She was the lead for the main transfer. Obviously, we had our own procurement, IT, and finance collaboration, as well as staff within PTFS. I think it was Janet McGowan at the time, who was the person coordinating our implementation. And Lucy and Janet worked very closely and managed to set the system up with relative ease, if I'm completely honest. We did have a range of training sessions which were really hands-on, and they allowed each member of staff to gather the information they needed to use the system from switchover, and which was really easy as well. Great.
Is there anything you would do differently if you were doing an implementation like that? Would you say there were any lessons learned from the implementation?
For us, it's getting our own internal departments on board quicker. So making sure our IT departments are aware of the system coming on board, any IT infrastructure needs, getting our procurement and finance departments involved, to making sure that the purchasing side of things goes quicker. Because the NHS, as everybody knows, takes an age for anything to happen with regards to procuring a system, to financing it, to actually paying the invoice, maybe 6 months down the line.
Yeah.
But with regards to PTFS, just again having that great personal relationship and making sure that, you know, all our needs are met from either side, really.
Great. And I mean, you've mentioned a few things in passing, but sort of in overview, I suppose, how's it worked out, but maybe a bit more specifically, any particular aspects of Koha that you think are you know, key benefits to your organization?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, you know, being lighter on our IT infrastructure, our desktop PCs, keeping those, you know, as light as possible, just being web-based again, you know, with PTFS hosting and managing our server, you know, and being web-based, the downtime's minimal. You know, it tends only to be when we do an upgrade, and that's out of core hours anyway, so it's not affecting our services. The ease of use of the system is great. How you can personalize it, how you can make it fit your needs. I mean, using the resources available, such as the reports repository is great. The wiki and, you know, the email discussion lists, and also just the PTFS help desk is a massive help, especially with regards to certain aspects of SQL syntax that just go right over my head. I could do basics, but anything more complicated. It's just like, help. And, you know, the help desk are always on hand to help whenever I need it, even if it's just to say, it's here, you can have a go yourself, but we're here for backup as well. So just having that great working relationship was a need for us to move forward as well.
Great. You mentioned that Koha is an open source. We've covered that earlier today in the conference, but have you been able to engage with the community at all? Do you find any benefit from the community?
I have voted on a couple of the Bugzilla things that come round. I haven't got actively involved, so I'm not sure whether my technical knowledge is quite there, but I am involved. I do use the reports repository, and you can amend those to your needs. I do go on the email discussion list and have made comments on that, and of course the PTFS help desk as well. So not the wider community as such, but I have voted on certain things that I think would enhance the system for future developments as well.
And that is one of the benefits, obviously, of the open source world, is that the community is and the users of the system are what prioritize what gets developed and what gets fixed for future releases. So it is good to hear that you're able to engage with that. You've done a great job already about talking about PTFS Europe's support, but is there anything perhaps you'd say to your library colleagues out there who might be wavering about systems, and that you would say why Koha is worth a look, and working with PTFS Europe on Koha is a good choice for them?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, going from our previous library management system, this one is so easy to use. It's so intuitive. It can be personalized with the help of PTFS. The help desk, the relationship you get, the help and support, the training, even during upgrades, you get the release notes and you get highlights of, different things that have changed that would really assist you, because the help desk, the guys on the help desk know how your system works. I've always had professional and, helpful responses. And it's always helped me fix an issue or develop in the way that we need as a library service moving forward. During COVID, doing the extended hour, low periods, through to having that shelf in location where you can, have books in isolation for 72 hours. We may not have taken on all of the, COVID precautions, but having them there and knowing that you have that support from your organisation has been fantastic for us. Great.
Well, Emma, thank you very much for chatting to me about this. Emma's around. If there are any specific questions that you have for Emma and the implementation they did in Worcestershire, I'm sure she'd be happy to answer. So just pop any questions that you have in the messaging system, and we'll respond to you there. So Emma, thank you very much, and nice to have had you part of the conference.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me.
So thank you very much to Emma for that fantastic presentation of the implementation at the Worcestershire Health Libraries. One thing I'd just add to what Emma was saying about the collaboration across the community, something that PTFS Europe have been involved in for some time now is a Koha user group in the northwest of England, and the Northwest user group, and that's libraries that use Koha getting together themselves. We take part as well, but it's driven by the libraries to tackle issues that they have as libraries using Koha, to work on developments together, to come up with suggestions as to how to use Koha better, and just to share their experiences. And we're in the process of with the help of Matthew Hale, who was talking earlier, of hopefully setting up a health libraries user group for Koha. So I just thought I'd mention that today, as that's something we're going to get underway in the coming weeks. Right, the final presentation today is going to be by Marc Gavier from PTFS Europe about a new development on an inquiry management system that Marc has been driving through with us in PTFS Europe. So over to you, Marc.
Thanks, Andrew. I'll just share my screen and hopefully everyone will be able to see that. Has everyone got a screen with login with Google?
Yep.
Great. So yeah, as Andrew said, this is a new thing for us, the inquiry management system. First of all, before going into it, a couple of words about why we did it. Everybody gets inquiries. It's part and parcel of providing a service. And there are a number of different ways of managing the queries that come through. And on the one hand, you've got something very simple, like a lot of people have an email address, a support email address, and they put that on their website or one of their systems. And the good thing about that is it's really, really easy for the users. No barriers at all to submitting a query. But the downside of it sometimes with a system like that is managing the queries once they come in and keeping track of them and ensuring that a response is sent back. At the other end of the spectrum, you've got these large ticketing systems, and the downside to those is that the user, in many cases, has to sign up a new account. It's another username and password to remember. It's a separate place to go, and they can be very. They can consume a lot of your time managing the queries. They can be comprehensive in managing the queries, but it can take a lot of time. And what we're trying to do with this is get the best of both worlds, because there's this gap in between the two, and that's what we're trying to address. So what we have here, first of all, this would be the equivalent of a public user logging into the system. So we've got login with Google here. This could equally be login with Facebook, with Twitter, with Instagram, any of those social services. And we also support single sign-on systems as well. So there's no account to sign up. People can just use their existing username and password. So if I log in here with a Google username and password, and what I'll get immediately, what I'm presented with is the ability to submit a new query, because 9 times out of 10, that's the first thing that someone wants to do. The exception to that would be if someone has added a reply to an existing query, and an email alert will go to the person in question, and there's a link in there that will take them directly into one of these queries, so they don't have to try and find the query, and it makes it really simple just to get to the reply. So first of all, you can see I'm logged in here. You can see my previous queries here. Obviously, these could mount up over time. So we've got a filter at the top there. We can just search for something and it will filter that list down. So it makes it really easy to find previous queries that you've submitted to the library, and clicking on any of those will take you into the query in question. If I go back and I submit a new query, if I say it's an article request, so yeah, I can just type it in. This should really seem very familiar to anyone. It's what we've tried to do here is make it as intuitive and as simple as possible. No barriers at all to anyone submitting a query, and this should be a very familiar interface. So straight away we're getting around having to train the users how to use a new system. So I can just fire that off there. It's added to my list of queries there, and it says, thank you for your message. One of our staff will reply as soon as possible. So that's now gone off into the system, and in the background, an email alert will be sent to the library. So if I now come across here and log in as a member of library staff, what you see is a very similar interface. So we can see here, we've got an unread query and we've got historical queries as well. So this is the query that's just come in. What we're trying to do here is not have one of these huge ticketing systems where it takes a lot of time to manage all of the queries that come in. It should be a very, very simple process, and the bulk of your time should be directed towards answering the queries rather than managing the system. So we've spent quite a lot of time thinking about how we can make it a very simple process, a very quick process, but not lose any of the functionality around managing queries. And we've done that with various filters on the system. So as you can see over here, we've got a list of folders, and these should seem very familiar. They're more or less the equivalent of email folders that you would get. So if I click on the unread filter, you'll see there, this is the article request that's just been posted. So if I click on that, it will mark it as read. It moves it out of the unread and into all queries. I can type my reply. And as well as typing a reply, I can also add attachments. So we have here, sorry, Mike, because I'm sharing my screen, my browser's blocking that for security. But you can attach articles, you can attach images, you can attach files, and they will be sent back to the user. So if I send that off there and we go back, you can see that reply has popped up a few seconds ago. And in the same way as the library gets an email notification with the link in, the patron that submitted the request will get the same email. They'll be able to click on the link and it'll take them straight into that, and they'll be able to read the article. So very, very simple process around how to submit and respond to queries. As far as the management of them is concerned, we've got them all split up here. So we've already seen unread. All queries is everything that's been submitted into the system. So you will find everything in there apart from unread queries. So you can see unread as a sort of, these are the ones to action. We've also got escalated queries. And if we move over this little button here, you can see we can escalate a query, we can mark it as complete, or we can put it into the bin, or remove the flag altogether. Clicking any of these moves it around in the folder. So marking it as complete, we'll put it in complete. Marking as bin, we'll put it into the bin. And an important thing, a decision we made was not to ever delete queries that have been submitted from the system. So there's always an archive. So anything that goes into the bin stays there as an archive, so you can always refer back to it. In addition to that, what we have, if I go back to all of our queries, is we've got a search filter, very similar to the public one. So if I want to see everything to do with the BMJ, you can see that it filters that out very quickly, and we can get to that. But we can also combine these filters as well. So as you build up these filters, it starts to become quite a powerful search tool. So if we want to see everything that was escalated, that was, for instance, for Lancet, we can do that as well. So they're the sort of built-in ways and the standard ways of doing it. We've also got labels, and these are completely customizable. And the article requests, general queries that you see there, things that I've set up myself. So for instance, if you did want to break things down by the type of query, you could do that and go into article requests. Let's just go back into all queries, or we could have general queries. Another thing you could do is if you have a number of staff working on the desk, you could set up queries by name. So when George starts his shift, he can click on that and he can see anything that's been assigned to him, and similarly for Mildred. And again, these can be combined with the other two filters. So if we did want to see all escalated queries that were assigned to George that were to do with the Lancet, we can quite easily do that and filter those out. So it's a very simple process, but it's a very effective way of getting to the queries that you need, seeing the status of them and categorizing them in different ways, whatever suits your workflow. So if I just remove those, and we go back to our standard view and go into all queries, what we might get, for instance, is George might be leaving. He might be going on to pastures new, and he's been replaced by someone called Steve. So what we could do in that instance is we could add a new label for Steve. and we'll mark him as yellow. Any of these others are editable as well, but once you do that, we've got Steve there. So if I want to assign all the things that are currently assigned to George to Steve, I can do that, filter them down. And once you've applied filters, you then get this bulk option as well. So in theory, George could have hundreds of queries applied to him. So we can select all of those at once. We can go to the tag, we can unassign George from that, and we can quite easily apply all of those to Steve. So in just a few clicks, what we've done is moved all of that workflow around, and we can now go in there and remove George, and everything is now assigned to Steve. So that's a very, very quick run through of what we've got there. This is, as I say, it's a new thing for us. It's software that's still in development. And we've got a number of customers who are doing beta tests of this. And we've got those from various different places. What we don't have at the minute is anyone from health as a beta partner. So if anyone was interested in testing this software, giving us feedback on the software and possibly influencing the future development of it, that would be really useful for us. So if you could just drop us a line to let us know that you're interested, we can have a chat about it and set something up and set up a trial of that. So yeah, I mean, really it's designed to fill that gap between a very sort of homespun, homegrown workflow and these big monolith ticketing systems that are sometimes way over the top for what's needed. And hopefully we've hit the nail on the head and we can improve this and just make it really easy for people to submit things and really easy to answer them and manage them. Anybody got any questions? Or anything you want to go back over?
Fantastic, Mark. That's really great. We have 10 minutes of the conference left, so we wanted to open the last 10 minutes up to anyone to ask questions about what Mark's just been presenting. We chose to show you this piece of software because we thought it's relevant to health libraries who we know handle a lot of inquiries, but also as Mark has said, if anyone was interested in being a beta partner, then that's something else you could talk to us about. But please feel free to either raise your hand, switch your microphone on, ask a question of any of the speakers from today. Or just to pop a question into the chat channel, either in Zoom or on the YouTube. Emma's asking about a stats report on the inquiry management system.
We have deliberately taken the decision to keep this as lightweight as possible. And what we could do is we could keep on adding and adding and adding, but we're very conscious of the fact that that then takes it towards one of these huge monolith ticketing systems. What we can do is we can open up the database in this, and we have another reporting tool called Metabase, and this is compatible with Metabase. And instead of having a sort of pre-built set of reports that might not give you what you want or is there or thereabouts and you have to manipulate it all in Excel, with Metabase what you can do is you can create your own reports and tailor those reports, put all of this stuff on your dashboard so you've got all that information at your fingertips, along with all the other management information that you have for the library system. So that was our thinking around that, try and build it in with everything else and try and make it as flexible as possible.
Thank you. Any more questions, anyone? So I'm just going to just summarize what we've covered today. And while I'm talking, there's still opportunity, plenty of time to post any questions that you have in either of the chat sessions. I also posted a link just before Emma's question about an evaluation of today. We'd be really grateful if you took the time just to fill in that form for us, and there's the opportunity to give us any contact information to get in touch with you if you want to see more of anything that you've seen today. So firstly, we thank Matthew Hale very much for giving his presentation about the King's Fund and their journey through open source software, and in particular with Koha over the last 11 years. Lucy gave a terrific presentation showing how Koha is a really great interface and Opac for the library user. And then Jonathan talked to us about the challenges or not of implementing a library system during a global pandemic. We then had Fiona talking to us and showing us the staff side to sort of mirror and balance what Lucy had shown us earlier on the Opac. Then Emma, thank you very much as well for your contribution. The chat that you had with me about your systems in Worcestershire and Herefordshire, and the experience you have had during the implementation and on an ongoing basis with PTFS Europe. And then thank you to Mark with the inquiry management system just now. As I mentioned, there's opportunity to watch these videos anytime on the YouTube channel. We have been streaming them to YouTube, so the whole conference will be available on YouTube. If you want to share with any colleagues, then feel free to share the links. Our YouTube channel is a source of ongoing information, as Jonathan mentioned, and I popped the link in earlier. So unless there are any more questions, we're just a few minutes ahead of schedule. We're really grateful for those attending today. We always like to share what we have to offer here at PTFS Europe. In particular, we like to talk about Koha and the open source world, the world of open source software. So thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to being in touch with you all again at some point in the future.
Thank you very much.